Welcome to week 2 in property investment and finance. Here we're going to begin a fairly large project which is going to take us a few weeks to complete, and that is a specialised industry ready DCF model suitable for a single tenanted property. The focus in this unit is single tenanted property, merely because that is the entry level for serious professional practice. And the model we're going to build, you will be able to use for serious financial analysis of property investments. It doesn't mean that that's all you can do with it, because if you're switched on as you go through and build the model, you will notice that there is space for adding extra complexity, extra layers of information to be able to adjust the model for more complex properties, more complex situations. However, we're starting with the base model, if you like, and what I want you to do is really understand what's going on and be able to build one yourself. In the assignment, I'm asking you to build your own in a different layout to what we're using in class. This is very important. It's one thing to just copy what's happening in the classroom and the monkey see, monkey do, and so on, and you'll get the right answer, especially with the self-correcting assistance to make sure that you cannot make mistakes. That does not mean that you have mastered the concepts, and it is my goal to have you mastering the concepts so you can go out into your professional lives, wherever they are, in property, in financial advice, even in accounting, and be able to pull the model that you build out of the drawer, out of some obscure file in your computer, and load it up and use it to do actual analysis and make good advice. Too much advice in the property investment area is done simply by hearsay, by common opinion, by what the herd is doing. And this is one thing that I'd like you to get to the end of the unit having grown well and truly past. While there are significant limitations with the discounted cash flow approach to seeing the future, it is by far the best way to do a financial appraisal of a property investment, because a property investment is a very complex thing. You have cash flows coming here and there, you've got growths here and you've got discounts there, you've got all sorts of things going on. The advantage of a DCF is that it gives you the discipline to at least consider all of the issues, the variables in this case, and to at least be able to have an informed opinion, a qualified informed opinion on each element of value in this very complex arrangement. And so the more you do it, the more sensitive you'll become to what is actually important, what's not important, what direction the project is likely to run over time, what its sensitivities are, what its vulnerabilities are. And you do that by modelling. Precision is also an important issue. It's very hard to completely communicate that. But in many other disciplines, numerical precision is absolutely paramount. I'm thinking of engineering and so on, places where if you don't get your numbers precise, you might build an elegant looking bridge, but it's likely to fall down or some other bad thing is going to happen. And the same thing is the case when you design even humble things like houses. Getting the numbers right is something that professionals are paid to do. Not that you're paid directly, it's just that you're expected to because you're a professional. If you were simply a technician, you would have someone looking over your shoulder and checking and rechecking and triple checking and so on. But you don't get your cardiologist to be checked by, 7 other cardiologists or something, because he's a professional, because he is meant to spend the time to make sure he's right before he actually does anything which will affect his clients, his customers, his patients. A similar approach needs to be taken in financial appraisal. Unfortunately, often financial appraisal does not carry the rigour that you'll find in something like, say, accounting and auditing, where it might be tedious, it might be simple, but it's the review of literally thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of simple transactions, additions, subtractions, and so on, transfers from one account to another, whatever, but they all have to be correct. In the fast and wild area of finance, that's often neglected, certainly as far as it should be taken. As we go through the unit, I can't overestimate or overstate the importance of finding ways of checking your calculations. As part of that, I advise you to independently check everything you do, especially in things which are eventually going to find their way into professional practice. An excellent way of doing that, partly because it's a completely independent check and partly because it gives you valuable skills and experience, is to check your calculations using a financial calculator. Master your financial calculator. This is not a TAFE college, so I'm not going to be taking you through how to press each button on, whatever financial calculator you happen to have. I leave that to you as university students. These days, that's actually very easy because there is an absolute mountain of tutorial material for all of the major brands. And you'll find there are some resources on selecting and acquiring a financial calculator associated with the Moodle course, and also you'll find more in the Property Gateway with a little bit of overlap. The important thing is, find yourself a financial calculator if you're working towards a career which in any way will include financial advice. So accountants, financial advisors, property people, all think seriously about getting yourself a financial calculator and especially learning how to use it. This is something that is quite simple, but it's not necessarily apparent. It's really the maths that you did in business finance when you did that unit, but now it's being applied in the real world. Once you get around those methods, and in most financial calculators it comes down to learning how to operate merely 5 buttons on the calculator. The button where you input the rate, the number of periods, the PV, FV, and payment. It's all you have to spend time to do. Once you do that, you'll find it enormously useful. I found that in my consulting work, working in a very busy office, all of the staff involved in that work all had their financial calculators. And while we tended to use extremely complex computer-based models, often but not always based on Excel, similar to what you're building, we had our calculators at the ready, either on our desk or in our top drawer, ready to do independent checking or miscellaneous minus calculations whenever that was needed. And I recommend that to you. This is not, as I say, it's not a calculator course. And at the end of it, you'll be using Excel, which is the reason that we had last week's emphasis, the FinTude exercise and so on. But use your calculator because it gives you a great independent check of what's going on. So build your model, print it out, go through and check it with your financial calculator. It will do 3 things. It will check your calculations, check your model, that's terrific. It will also give you that extra skill in using that tool, which is a very important tool. Lastly, It will give you a lot of confidence moving forward and a better feel for what's going on. It's one thing to watch me and copy me and all the rest of it, but actually have this feel for what's going on will be absolutely invaluable when you tackle novel tasks in your future career. Maybe not in 6 months' time, maybe in 6 years' time, or 20 years' time, and so on. But these tools, like riding a bicycle, is worth working on and getting on top of. Okay, I think that gives us enough of an idea of what we're doing. The rest of the resources are devoted to both the theory and the practice of applying DCF in this case. Make sure you work through them, get rid of the yellow highlights, and I hope you enjoy this topic. Next week, we'll be taking this basic model and adding some more bells and whistles to it, and that will be the task actually for the week after as well, and so on. And eventually, when we've done all of that, you will have an excellent model to take into your professional lives.